Hey everyone. Uh, Sunday night here, so I'm gonna be doing another video, and this one gonna be, I guess you could call it controversial. Um, a lot of people would probably dismiss this just right off the bat without even hearing it out, just because we've been conditioned in society that when we hear the word conspiracy, we immediately think tinfoil hats, Bigfoot, aliens, that kind of nonsense, and so we dismiss it outright. And that's a programming tool. That's something that's been programmed into us, because the word itself, conspiracy, just means a secret plot, and that's a reality that exists. There's secret plots all the time. If a person secretly plots to murder somebody, they're charged with conspiracy to commit murder. So the word itself is not. It shouldn't be a controversial word. It shouldn't cause us to just dismiss things. But we have been programmed to do that. When we hear the word, we think of lunacy and mental institutions, and so we kind of just tune it out. Um, so, I would understand it if this isn't your cup of tea and you kind of want to turn away from it. The reason I'm going to get into it is because I do believe it's biblical. What I'm going to be talking about, a lot of people would call the New World Order. Some people would refer to it as the plot of the Illuminati. These are just like different ways to put it into some sort of terminology that people can understand what it is that you're going to be talking about. But realistically, it's a biblical concept, and so I think it should be called more of the devil's scheme. He's called the god of this world in the Bible. He's referred to as the prince. He's the ruler of this world. And so when you start to look into this conspiracy from a biblical viewpoint, from a biblical worldview, what you're discovering is kind of his hierarchy of control. You're kind of looking into how it is that Satan rules the world, specifically through geopolitics and through finances, but also through entertainment industry, corporations, um, media, educational systems, things like that. I believe, and I believe it can be proved through the scriptures, that the devil is in control of all these things, that he is in fact called the god of this world, and that he has temporary control, with the caveat that he is under the sovereign direction of the Lord. I've heard it said by one pastor that Satan is God's devil. He's on a leash. He can't do anything more than what God allows and determines, but he is temporarily in control of this world. And so this is a passion that I've had for several years. It's kind of fizzled here recently, just been focused on other things, but from like 2004 to like maybe 2012, this consumed a lot of my time, a lot of my research. I was just really consumed with figuring out this devilish scheme, this worldwide system of control that the devil has, and so I spent a lot of time doing research and looking into it. And I'm just going to share some of my thoughts on that, kind of give like a brief outline of what I know. And so like I say, the reason I'm getting into it is because I believe it's a biblical concept. So I know a lot of people would tune it out and go, what do we have to do with politics, or what do we care about a subject like the New World Order or the Illuminati? But it's an occultic, Luciferic agenda, and it's rooted in biblical prophecy and understanding the Bible. So I do think it's important for Christians to have at least a rudimentary understanding of what's going on. For me personally, and I'll get into this, it helped me disassociate from the things of the world. It kind of broke the grip of materialism and vain efforts at attaining some sort of level of success in this world, because I saw it all as pointless. It all belongs to the devil. What do I care what happens in this world? My goal is to to grow in righteousness and holiness, to glorify God and to proclaim the gospel. So understanding the level of control that Satan has in this world really helps when you see that he's in control of all the corporations, all the government, all the media. It really helps you to kind of hold those things at arm's distance, to not be consumed by them, because you understand their evil beginnings. So I'm gonna get into that, and if it's, like I say, if it's not your cup of tea, that's fine. Feel free to skip this video, but I do believe it's biblical. And as always, before getting into it, I'm going to pray. And so if you guys want to pray with me, I'd appreciate it. If you can't catch this live or you can't watch the whole thing, that's fine. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can watch this and all my videos at your convenience. It's King Ram 417. That's K, my middle initial, Ingram, my last name, 417. And I'll try to get this one posted right away, but you can watch all my videos on there whenever you want. All right, I'm going to pray here. Lord, I pray that you forgive me of my sins, Lord, which are numerous and grievous, Lord. I just pray that you break my heart, Lord, specifically over my habitual sins that tend to dull my senses and don't grieve me like they should, Lord. I just pray that you would deliver me from this battle, Lord, this battle of the flesh, that you would give me victory over these habitual sins in my life, that you would cause me to be sorrowful, Lord, that you would grant me godly sorrow and repentance over my sins, that you would turn me away from them, Lord. You purify my heart, Lord, and help me to walk in righteousness and holiness, Lord, to serve you with all my life, to serve you with all my breath, Lord. Every moment of my day to dedicate it to you, Lord, and to lift your name up high and just to seek your face in everything I do, Lord. I pray for humility in this, Lord. I pray, I see a nervousness in my heart because I know that people roll their eyes and kind of dismiss you as a kook when you start to talk about these things. They kind of just tune out and just chalk it up to paranoia and lunacy with it, without even really giving ear to hear, Lord. And so it causes a hesitancy in my heart, Lord, to a fear of man in my heart, a fear of the opinions of men. And so I pray that you take my eyes off of that, Lord, that you would be glorified in this, Lord. If this is true, Lord, if I am seeing things correctly, that you would help us to understand the enemy, to understand his control of the world, to help us to detach from the things of this world, to not have a love of worldly things, Lord, but to see these things as property of the devil. And although we live in the world and we do have to participate to a certain extent, we don't have to love the things of this world, Lord. We can be detached from them. And I just pray for clarity of mind, Lord, that you would help me to explain things clearly, that you would grant ears to hear, that you would grant us all teachable hearts, Lord, that you would be magnified, that I would make much of you in this, Lord, please. Just be with me in this video, Lord. I love you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. So I want to start out by reading Luke chapter 4, verses 5 through 7. This is when Jesus was in the desert and he was being tempted by the devil. And it reads here, starting in verse 5, "And the devil, taking him up into an high mountain, shewed unto him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. And the devil said unto him, All this power will I give thee, and the glory of them, for that is delivered unto me, and to whomsoever I will I give it. If thou therefore will worship me, it shall be thine." So one other side note, this is kind of a lengthy article that I wrote. I wrote this back on June 11th, 2015. And so I'm probably going to break this up into a couple different parts, just depending on how long this goes. But it might be 3 parts. Definitely it'll be 2, but maybe even 3. Um, but to start out, to kind of explain in my initial salvation experience, um, the way that I got started on this topic, and I think this even happened while I was in jail. So this is like right after I got saved. I got saved in a jail cell. And so we would have access to the jail library once or twice a week. And I found a book in there called En Route to Global Occupation. And it's written by Gary Kaw. And Gary Kaw was a former government official. He used to work for, I can't remember if it was the government of Ohio, I think. But he was involved in the federal government. He had to work with foreign nations. It might have been in the trade industry. I'm not sure exactly, but he had discovered a plot within the government for a world government. He discovered that people within our government and within foreign governments were working towards getting rid of national sovereignty and combining all the nations into one world government. Specifically, I think in his book, for economic and trade purposes, so that corporations could do business across country lines without any hindrance, looking for this one world entity, one world government. Now, what caught my eye, and Gary Kaw claims to be a Christian, a born again Christian. I don't see any reason to doubt him. But he saw this and saw it right away as a biblical thing, because the Bible calls in Revelation chapter 13, it states that during the end times there would be a world government. The Bible talks about a beast, and in the book of Daniel, we're shown that when prophecy is given about a beast, it's referring to a government. It's referring to a world power. In Daniel's day, he saw 4 beasts that represented Medo-Persia, the Babylonian Empire, the Grecian Empire, and the Roman Empire. So each beast represented a government power, a world power. And in the book of Revelation, we see another beast that's worldwide in scope. And Satan himself sits at the head of this beast. And all tribes, all nations, all tongues will worship this beast, will participate in this beast system, this beast kingdom. And I'm sure everybody at least has some sort of familiarity with the mark of the beast. And that's also from Revelation 13, where it talks about people will have to pledge allegiance to this beast system, this world government, by taking a mark in their hand or in their forehead, some sort of device. It's not clearly defined in the scripture what it is. I think, by looking at world events, we can pinpoint what it is, and I'll get into that later. But without this mark, people won't be able to buy or sell. So it's tied into the economy, a worldwide economy, in which if you're going to participate in the economic system of this world power, you're going to have the mark. And so Gary Kaw saw that in his book, and being a brand new baby Christian, I feel like maybe it was a gift from the Lord looking back at it, because I don't know where else it would have come from, but I feel like I had a good understanding of end times events right out the gate. I had a passion for it. I believed we were living in the last days, and so I was really fascinated with this idea of the beast system in the book of Revelation. And Gary Kaw's book kind of opened my eyes to say, wow, man, the government is, and not only is this a biblical prophecy, but our current government and the governments of the world are currently working towards this aim. They're working towards a world government. And so that kind of, I believe, helped emphasize in my heart that we truly were in the last days, that I was actually seeing the beginnings of this world government coming together. But I didn't realize how extensive this was. Gary Kaw's book kind of just, opened my eyes to it and got me thinking about it. And then I moved on with my salvation experience and grew in faith. And I actually I'd always been kind of skeptical of politics, American politics, but I ended up finding myself supporting President Bush after 9/11. I thought he was a good Christian man. You know, that's what was proclaimed by fellow Christians, and was proclaimed on the news that George Bush was a Christian, that he was born again. And so I thought that was really cool. I was like, that's pretty awesome that we have a Christian man as president. And so I supported President Bush, and the first time I ever voted, I actually voted for the guy. But then I think it was like in 2004, I discovered a documentary called Loose Change. And I really recommend that everybody watch this video. It's so well done. I would recommend it. There's several different editions of this video. The one that opened my eyes was the second edition, and so that's the only one that I'm really familiar with, and the only one that I can recommend. But watching that documentary kind of changed everything for me, because it really presented crystal clear evidence regarding 9/11. You can see here I'm wearing a shirt that says 9/11 was an inside job. And what that means, it's not saying that 9/11 didn't happen. I think a lot of people have a twisted view of what that means when you say 9/11 was an inside job. Of course, airplanes hit those towers. We all watched that happen. But what it's saying is that it wasn't just Al Qaeda that planned this. It's saying that officials within our own government at least helped, and if not planned and carried this out by using Al Qaeda agents. And Loose Change just blew my mind in that it presented clear, scientific, factual evidence, an hour and a half of it, just bullet point after bullet point, that just blew my mind. I mean, anybody who watches that documentary, you cannot walk away from that without doubting the government explanation of what occurred on 9/11. Just to give you a couple ideas here, when the airplane struck those towers, they struck like near the 80th floor. Those buildings were built in the 70s, and they were built to resist an airplane hitting them. They had, each floor of that building had individual support levels. Each floor had concrete and steel supporting it. It also had fire-resistant steel. Modern-day skyscrapers have to have that in order to resist fire, so they don't collapse during a fire. So those planes hit near the 80th floor. After burning for about an hour, those floors collapsed. And then the government explanation of why those buildings collapsed completely, because that had never occurred in history before. Never before had a fire caused skyscrapers to collapse. Some skyscrapers even burned for like 24 hours straight and did not collapse. So they had to explain why these buildings collapsed just in on themselves. And what the government said is that the fire from the jet fuel and the office furniture caused the steel to weaken, and so that those floors from the 80th floor and up collapsed onto the floor below, causing its support structure to explode out, and then it would fall onto the level below, and then so on and so forth. So they called it the pancake effect, that each floor fell down and caused the next floor to fall, so it went boom, 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 all the way down. The problem with that is that they've done scientific studies on that, and those buildings, if you go back and watch the video of it, they collapsed at near free fall speed. From the time they started falling till the time they were completely collapsed was about 10 seconds. That's near free fall speed. In order for that to happen, each level of support would have to be blown out of the way so that it could just fall like this. If it were to fall in pancake fashion, like the government says, each floor, as it collapsed, it would meet resistance and it would slow it down a little. And they've studied that out, and they said the fastest it could have possibly happened scientifically is like 43 seconds. So the fact that it collapsed at free fall speed, there's questions there that need to be answered. How did that happen? How did each floor's support structure get blown out of the way? The only way that could happen is if there was explosive devices on each level, a controlled demolition, which if you watch any video of a controlled demolition of a building, it looks exactly like what happened on 9/11. The problem with that is it takes months to set up a controlled demolition. Well, one of the things they point out in this video is, like, for weeks leading up to 9/11, the Twin Towers had been evacuated, and there was a lot of suspicious activity going on where people could have gone in there and planted bombs. And it just so happens that the head of security for the Twin Tower complex was Marvin Bush, George Bush's brother. So that's just one aspect. There's numerous other ones, like the fact that jet fuel does not burn hot enough to melt steel. Jet fuel, I think, burns at like a maximum temperature of 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. Steel doesn't melt to like 3100, 3200 degrees Fahrenheit, something like that. It doesn't even weaken until 2300 degrees Fahrenheit. So when they say the jet fuel melted the steel and caused the collapse, that's scientifically impossible. Jet fuel can't melt steel. I mean, go turn on your oven if you have a if you have a stove with the metal frame on it and jet fuel, because what comes out of the oven is I think kerosene, which is basically the same thing as jet fuel. And you can run your oven all day long and it's not going to melt the steel frame around the burner, because steel does not have a melting temperature that can be reached by simple kerosene. You would need something much hotter. So jet fuel doesn't burn hot enough to melt steel. Other things pointed out in that video are like building number 7. The Twin Towers complex had 7 buildings. Buildings 1 and 2 were the ones that were hit by planes. Building 7 was the furthest one away. It was like a 47-story building. It collapsed at 5 p.m. that day, even though it had never been struck by a plane. And it collapsed in the same way, free fall speed, right down in on itself. It didn't tip over or anything like that, like it should have. It just collapsed in on itself. And the building owner, Larry Silverstein, on PBS admitted that it was a controlled demolition. Later recanted on that because he realized what that implied. That implies that bombs were set up in that building months ahead of time. So he conveniently changed his story and said, oh, and then the government said, we think small office fires caused from debris caused the building to weaken and collapse. Again, no modern skyscraper in history has ever collapsed from fire. It does not burn hot enough to melt steel. The Pentagon, if you go back and watch video of the Pentagon, there's no plane in any of the government released like several still frames of a shot, and a 747 jet is huge. It would have been just as big as the Pentagon, and in the video that was released, you can see nothing. There's a plume of smoke about 1/10 the size of the Pentagon that goes across the screen. That is not a 747 jet. There was no plane wreckage found at the Pentagon. Several of the hijackers, if you go to the FBI website and you look at who those hijackers were, I think there was 19 of them, like between 7 and 9 of them are still alive today. If they were on those planes, how's that possible? There's just numerous other things. So I watched that documentary, long story short, and it completely changed my view. I was like, hold up now, what's going on? Why would our government participate in this? Why would our government kill its own citizens? Why would our government help Islamic terrorists hijack planes and crash them into the buildings? And then why would our government set explosives in the building to ensure that maximum damage and was done, and that maximum fatalities were caused? And so that's what really triggered me to start looking into this. I started thinking, why would this happen? Because after watching Loose Change, you can't deny that it did happen. But I was just like, why? George Bush is supposedly this Christian man. So that led to years and years of research, completely changed my worldview. From there, I started looking into other documentaries. I discovered Alex Jones. If you watch his radio show, he can get kind of fanatical and extreme, so I understand why some people turn him off. But if you watch his documentaries, they're very well done, very well researched, specifically 9/11, The Road to Tyranny, Police State 4, the Camp FEMA documentaries. Endgame is phenomenal, The Obama Deception, The Fall of the Republic. I started looking into all this stuff and started studying out, and I found there was an occult, not cult, occult, OCCULT. There was an occult foundation behind these conspiracies that went back years and years and years. That are a lot of our high-ranking government officials, a lot of high-ranking CEOs, a lot of high-ranking media people were involved in occult organizations like Freemasonry or the Bohemian Club, where they would worship Lucifer. And so I started seeing this as a biblical thing, that the same way that the devil came to Jesus and said, all the kingdoms of the world belong to me, and I give them to whomever I will. If you'll worship me, I'll give them to you. And Jesus said no, of course, because Jesus is God, and he said, you shall only worship the Lord your God. But I think the devil still comes to men today and makes that same offer. I think he still comes through his occult organizations. When you walk into a Freemasonry lodge, it's not overtly Luciferic right off the bat. If you were to go into a Blue Lodge, the first 3 degrees of the Blue Lodge, those people probably have no idea that it's a Luciferic organization. They think it's just a fraternity of businessmen who get together and try to help society through like the Shriners hospitals and things like that. But you should be, if you're a Christian, you should be on high alert, because you'll see satanic symbols when you walk in there. You'll see things that just aren't right, and they'll tell you, yeah, we believe in God, but just not the God of the Bible. And they'll tell you, yeah, the Bible's right, but so is the Quran, and so is the Torah, and so there's things that should cause alert and skepticism. And then as you work your way up the levels of Freemasonry, it's I believe Pike, Alexander Pike, I believe his name is. He was a high-ranking Freemason official, or maybe it was Manly P. Hall, another high-ranking Freemason. But they said in their book, Morals and Dogma, that once an adept reaches the 32nd degree of Freemason or higher, they can be told the secrets. And the secret is that they worship Lucifer, that Lucifer is their god, and that in Lucifer's hands are all the powers that they need. And it's the same in all the occult organizations when you study them out, whether it's Mormonism, whether it's Jehovah's Witnesses, whether it's Roman Catholicism, whether it's the New Age cults, whether it's Scientology. When you walk in the door, the average person doesn't know that it's a Luciferian organization. They think it's just a religion, it's just a group, it's just whatever, and they're not told the secrets. But as they work their way up, as they show themselves worthy of these secrets, as they show themselves, and I suppose like in Freemasonry it would be, are you willing to accept that the Bible isn't true? And if you're willing to accept that, then they'll work you up to another level. But if you're a strong Bible-believing Christian and you reject that outright and say, no, of course not, the Bible is the Word of God, they're not going to advance you any higher. That's that you're not going any further into the organization, so you're never going to find out the secrets. But if you're willing to compromise, then you'll move up the ladder, and you'll get more and more of the secrets. And the more you compromise, the more power, the more secrets you get. So you, like Freemasonry, the next level up, they'll tell you, yeah, we told you when you initially came in here that there's a God, but we're not a religious organization. We don't worship any particular God. Then as you work your way up, they tell you, well, actually there is a real God, and he's got a secret name. You got to figure out the name. And so as you study and learn and grow and move your way up the ladder, eventually they come and they tell you, hey, the real God is Jabulon. And Jabulon is a mixture of Yahweh, Jehovah, the real God, Baal, the demon god Satan, and An, which is I think the Hebrew name for Osiris, the Egyptian god. So they tell you the Babylonian mystery religions have a little bit of the truth, the Egyptian mystery religions have a little bit of the truth, the Jews have a little bit of the truth, the Christians have a little bit of the truth, but the reality is it's a combination. It's all of it together, that Jabulon is the god. And then if you're willing to accept that, then they progress you up the ladder further until eventually you come to the 32nd degree, and they tell you, hey, God is really Lucifer. We worship Lucifer. But he's a good guy. He's not the bad guy. And so I started researching this out and learning all these things. In addition to the Alex Jones documentaries, I found a guy named Bill Schneebelin. He might be a little bit too much for some people, because he does get into some pretty weird things, some pretty far out there things. But again, I have no reason to doubt the guy. He says he's a Christian. He says that he started out as a witch. Well, he actually started out, he wanted to be a Catholic priest. He thought that was the way to serve God, and his whole goal was knowledge. He wanted more and more knowledge. And so when he went to seminary, he was told that actually the priest's goal is to become like Jesus. You're to be another Jesus. And he had a professor tell him, Jesus was a magician. That's how Jesus was able to do all those miracles. He was actually into Wicca. So if you want to be like Jesus, you're going to have to learn witchcraft. And so he got involved in witchcraft and worked his way up those chains. And then as he got towards the top of that, he was told, hey, if you really want the secrets, if you really want the knowledge, it's found in black magic. That's where the real power is at. So you got to get involved in that. And he was hungry for knowledge, so he did that and worked his way up. And then they told him it was through Satanism is where the real power's at. And through Satanism, he got involved in the Illuminati. And he did a video series called Exposing the Illuminati from Within that was really eye-opening as well. And he's got several other documentaries that I would recommend watching, including The Light Behind Freemasonry. He does one on Mormonism called Mormonism, the Temple of Doom. And then he's got one on Catholicism called Catholicism, the Church on Haunted Hill. All really good documentaries. Again, though, you really have to have a biblical understanding, I think, before you get into these things, because it's really, really hard to get a firm, linear, and chronological understanding of this plot, because there's so much information. It's just you can spend years and years and years and years researching this. I personally, like I mentioned, spent probably about 10 years delving deep into this. And so much of what I have written in this article here is probably going to be dated information, because I really stopped digging into it really hard right around 2012. Although I do keep up on what's going on in the world. And once you understand the Luciferian plot, it makes it pretty easy to discern world events and to see what's really going on in the news. But this article here, it's not going to have a lot of recent history, just because I did cool off my studying on this topic, and I became more focused on doctrine and theology and just striving for personal holiness and trying to fight my sins. But like I said, once you do have a firm grasp of what's going on here, once you understand this Luciferian plot, it becomes pretty easy to discern what's going on in the news, and so you don't really have to study much beyond that. But let me explain why I think this is important. And I got into this before I prayed, but I really think that the Lord laid this on my heart early, because it helped me to disassociate from a love of the world and a pursuit of materialism. It helped me to understand that almost all of this world, whether it's in the financial sector, the media, the fields of entertainment, scholarly fields, government agencies, etc., they're all under direct control of Satan and his agents. Satan really is the god of this world, and those put into power are usually people that have sold out to Satan, that have said yes when Lucifer comes along and says, all the kingdoms of the world belong to me and I'll give them to whom I will. Do you want your portion? Most people will say yes, because they're brought up through these occult organizations where they're taught level by level to disagree with Scripture and to have a contrary view of the world than what the Scriptures present, to the point where they start to see Lucifer as a good guy, that this is a good plot, this is a good thing, world government's a good thing, a mark of the beast is a good thing, to worship Lucifer is a good thing. That's what they actually start to believe, and so they sell out to this idea. Understanding this has really helped me to kill that love of the world. Because like I say, we are in this world, and we do unfortunately have to participate in it. We have to participate in the economy. We have to pay our bills and stuff. We have to use its products. We have to shop at its stores, and we, and stuff like that. But knowing who's in control of these organizations really helps to have a detachment from it, to hold loosely to these things, and to really not care all that much if it goes away, and to not be too tempted to forsake your morals in order to prosper in it. A lot of people will set aside honesty in order to gain a little bit of capital. A lot of people will set aside being an honest and truthful person if they can get ahead in business. And that's wrong. It's immoral. It's unbiblical. And when you understand that these things belong to the devil, you really don't want to gain in it. And so it helps to not forsake your morals in order to prosper in this world. Now, one important caveat before jumping into this deeply: if you are going to study this out, if you're going to take the time to start doing some research, it's vital that you have a proper biblical understanding, a biblical worldview first. Because I believe that Satan has smoke screens, so to speak, that are set up to distract you and to mislead you when you attempt to follow this trail. And what I mean by that is most people that we encounter in this world are content in ignorance. They'll hear the word conspiracy and they'll just dismiss it. They'll turn away from it. They'll hear about government conspiracies and plots and satanic plots and Luciferian occult organizations, and they'll just say, "Oh, that's crazy," and they'll move on. They're content in their ignorance. They don't want to learn. Like the guy from the Matrix movie, the guy who betrayed the team on the Matrix. He would rather be plunged into the fantasy world than know what's really going on. Most people like living in blissful ignorance. They enjoy the materialistic life. They enjoy the pursuit of riches and the pursuit of pleasures without really knowing who's in control of these things, or why things are happening in the world the way they are. I would say that the great mass of society falls into this category, probably like 85% or more. But for the rest, who actually start to investigate and dig in behind the scenes, trying to figure out what's really going on in the world, Satan will mislead you and will throw you off track when you start to look into this, so that you don't discover that this is a biblical thing. Because when you truly understand what's going on, it gives credence to the Bible. It gives credence to biblical prophecy. It shows that what the Bible says is happening, this spiritual battle between good and evil, this spiritual battle between darkness and light, between the kingdom of Satan and the kingdom of God, is real. It's a real thing, and Satan don't want you to know that, so he'll mislead you if you don't have a biblical worldview when you start to discover this. He doesn't want you to see that Lucifer is the god of this world, pulling the strings. Because if you discover that, then, like I say, you discover the reality of scriptures and the reality of Jesus Christ. So usually, if a person's not a Bible believer, and they start to look into this without that firm foundation, they're going to be misled onto one of two tracks that I found. One, they're going to believe that the Jews are behind this conspiracy. The Jews are to be blamed. If you start looking into this, you're quickly going to come across something called the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. And it's a smokescreen. It gives a lot of truth of what's going on in the world, but then it misdirects you and places the blame on the Jews, so that this looks like a Jewish conspiracy, a Jewish plot. That is not accurate. This is a satanic plot. This is a Luciferian plot. Yes, some of the people involved are rich Jews, like the Rothschilds, but it's not a Jewish plot. It's a satanic money plot. Nothing to do with the national Jews. But that's where Satan wants you to blame, so that you'll become an anti-Zionist, so that you'll hate the people of God, the Jewish people. Or the second path that you're going to be led to believe is that it's aliens doing it. You're going to come across nonsense about grays and reptilians. There's a fool out there, a demonic man called David Icke, that has a lot of good information, but then he says that this is an alien plot, that it's actually aliens called the reptilians that have possessed, and they're shapeshifters, and so our politicians are really reptilians. Complete lunacy, complete insanity. Made to made anybody looking into the New World Order. It's made to make them look like a lunatic and an idiot, and B, it's to discredit and to pull you away from Scripture. So again, you have to have a biblical understanding, because both of those misleading paths are dangerous lies that will lead people away from the truth. Now, with all that said, and like I mentioned before, there's so much information. There's no possible way. I could spend the next 5 years doing videos every Sunday, and we're never going to get there. And I don't know that much. You know, I tended to do a lot of research. The way I research things a lot of times is I'll get bullet points. I'll learn enough on the topic that I can defend that position and make a point, but I won't go in depth on it. You know, I won't spend years gaining a PhD in that. I'll get basically like a bachelor's, so to speak, and then I'll learn about the next topic, and I'll get the bullet points on that one and the next one. But you could spend a lifetime searching this out. You know, you could start with the Tower of Babel and Nimrod. And then you could go into the mystery religions of the Grecian Empire, and you could look into the mystery religions of Rome, and especially in this plot, the mystery religions of Egypt and Babylon. Or then you could look into the Crusades and the Knights Templars, who were an occult organization that worshipped Lucifer, but were paid and steered by the Roman Catholic institution. Or you could look into the Jesuits, who are the secret society of Rome, the secret society of Roman Catholicism, or the Rosicrucians, kind of the precursor to the Freemasons. Then you could look into the Illuminati, formed in 1776 by Adam Weishaupt, and how it was discovered and supposedly destroyed, but what it really did was just go underground and infiltrate Freemasonry. Or you could look into the Jacobins, who were agents of the Illuminati that fomented the French Revolution. Or you could start studying out the Rothschilds and how they took over all of England in the banking systems, how they used schemes and plots and ploys to during the wars with Napoleon, to basically bankrupt the English stock market and then buy up all the businesses. Or you could look into the creation of the Round Table groups through Cecil Rhodes and its spread into America, the creation of the Federal Reserve and the United Nations, the CFR, which is the Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderbergs, the Trilateral Commission, the Rockefellers, which are a high-level occult Illuminati group with a strong arm here in America, probably second only to the Rothschilds. You could look into the DuPont family, another Illuminati family, the J.P. Morgans, the Kennedys, another Illuminati family, the Royal family, with its ties into Luciferianism and Illuminism. We could look at the New Age religions, the witchcraft, Wicca, Mormonism, the Jehovah's Witnesses, Roman Catholicism. It's so very, very deep and extensive that it's exhausting and seemingly a never-ending study. And it's really hard to put it all together, because it's coming, the plot of Satan is coming at things from such various different angles. You have the Roman Catholic angle with the Jesuits steering everything towards a one world government, where she will sit at the top of it and control things spiritually. You have the banking institutions of the world, the International Monetary Fund, the Federal Reserve System, all under the control of the same people, working towards the establishment of one world cashless economy. You have the governments of the world through the United Nations, through NATO, and through the different trade agreements, working towards borderless society, so that there's one world government, one world policy. You could look into global climate change, the conspiracy between global warming, how it's made to cause a global carbon tax that will require a global government to enforce. You could look into so many different angles. They're all coming at it from, you have the economic sector, you have the educational center, you have the media center, you have the geopolitical center, you have the religious ecumenical center, all working under the direction of Lucifer, because that's the thing that they all have in common. No matter which occult organization you look into, no matter which occult branch you decide to study, when you get to the top of that pyramid scheme, it's Lucifer at the top. The high level people in those organizations know that they're worshiping Lucifer. They're deceiving the ones below them, working all things together to bring this world government, coming at it from different angles. And so, like I say, it's a very exhaustive study. Now, most of my studying has come from documentaries. That's just the way I like to learn. And I already mentioned several of them. I'm going to mention them again. So if you want to write them down and start looking into this, I would suggest that you start with Loose Change, second edition. Mind blowing. Then you could look at Aaron Russo's documentary called America, Freedom to Fascism. And then you can look into some of the Alex Jones documentaries, particularly 9/11, The Road to Tyranny, Police State 4, Camp FEMA 2, Endgame, The Obama Deception, The Fall of the Republic. You can look into Bill Schnebelin's, especially exposing the Illuminati from within and the light behind Freemasonry. You can look into, there's several by the Cutting Edge website, or I'm not sure if it's done by the website or just a gentleman affiliated with them. His name is Chris Pinto. Very good documentaries. You could look at Megiddo and Megiddo Part 2. There's a Hollywood movie called Megiddo, so don't get that one. Look at the documentaries by Chris Pinto. Also, America's Secret Beginnings, which is a 4-part series. I believe it starts with Riddles in Stone, and then it goes to Eye of the Phoenix. There's one other one in there too. I can't recall the name of it right now off the top of my head. But the Hidden Faith of Our Founding Fathers, all fantastic documentaries that will help you to understand what's really going on. You can also look into a series by Seventh-day Adventists, which I know we really shouldn't give too much credence to them, because they do have cultic beliefs, heretical beliefs, I believe. I haven't looked too much into them, but they do a good job exposing Roman Catholicism. And there's a guy, Walter Veith, I think his name is. He has a series, you can find it on Google videos or YouTube, called Total Onslaught. And I think it's like a 40-part series. It's really, really good. You can also look into Billy Crone. He's a pastor, Pastor Billy Crone. He does a 10-part series regarding signs of the end times. I forget what it's called, but I'm sure if you just do Billy Crone 10 signs of the end of the world, you'll find his series. He is a pre-trib rapture guy, so you got to dismiss that nonsense. But he does get into some really good stuff. So that's how I did it. There's also several books you can look into. David Rivera did a book called, what was the name of it? History of the New World Order, I think. Very good, but I think it was written in the 80s, so it doesn't have a lot of current information, but it'll give you the history of the New World Order up to the 80s. Gary Kaa's book, En Route to Global Occupation. He did 2 follow-ups to that book as well. I haven't read those yet. But also there's several articles you can read, several really good websites. There's a website called Illuminati News. There's also a website that's fantastic, a great resource website. Please write this down and check it out. It's Net Center, and it's abbreviated, so I'll spell it for you. It's netctr.com. netctr.com. Great website with tons of articles on numerous different New World Order articles and different information. You can find probably a lot of these documentaries on there as well. CuttingEdge.org. It's a Christian organization that looks at current news from an end times worldview. Again, I believe they're pre-trib dispensational, so you got to work through all that nonsense. But you do get a lot of good information from them. Bill Schneebelen, Loose Change, I already mentioned. Infowars.com is Alex Jones's website. You can go into the archives there and search any topic you want. Research the Federal Reserve, research the Bilderbergs, research the Trilateral Commission, research the Council on Foreign Relations, and I'm going to get into what those different organizations are and what they represent. Also, a book that I never read, but it's highly recommended by a lot of people. 13 Bloodlines of the Illuminati. I've read highlights of it through different articles, but it's by Fritz Springmeier. 13 Bloodlines of the Illuminati, where he identifies the head families behind this plot, which is kind of crazy when you start to look into the finances, whether it's the fields of industry like steel and oil, or pharmaceutical companies, or the media organizations, or these different foundations, the educational system. They're all controlled by the same family. So like when you go and you read like Forbes's list of the 50 richest people in the world, that's a lie. It's propaganda nonsense when they say oh, Bill Gates or Steve Jobs is at the top of that list. No, those guys might have $50 billion or whatever. That's chump change compared to like the Rockefellers or the royal family or the Rothschilds, who own the banks. They own the people. They own the machines that print the money. They're worth trillions and trillions of dollars. They sit on the boards and have controlling interest in almost every organization. These same 13 families own everything. Because like I said, I believe that the same way that Satan came to Jesus in the desert and said, all these kingdoms belong to me, and I'll give them to whomever I will if you'll worship me. He does that same thing. And people like the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the DuPonts, the Morgans, the Disney family, the Lees, the Kennedys, the Onassises, they sold out. They took that deal. And now the kingdoms of this world are under their control. They run the organizations, they run the banks, they run the politics, and they worship the devil, and they're steering the entire world towards a one world cashless society, a beast system in which they're going to eventually require everybody to take a mark in their right hand or in their forehead in order to participate in this economic system. In order to have banking, you'll have to get this, and if you don't, you'll be cut off from society and persecuted. So all that was kind of a precursor. I don't know how long I'm into this video, if that should be part one, or if I should start getting into something else here. I think I'll stop there. That'll be part one. I haven't even started the article yet. That was just something I wrote to kind of give you an idea of what we're going to get into. So this is probably going to end up being a 3 or 4 part series. But again, if you couldn't watch it live, subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can watch this and all my videos at your convenience. It's King Ram 417. It's K, my middle initial. Ingram, my last name, 417. And this is part one. So I'll spend the next several weekends, Lord willing, discussing this. And we'll go from there. All right. I love you guys. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later.